Senate, if we could go ahead and take our seats. All right, I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move into first roll call.
Adams?
Here.
Armstrong? Here. Arnaldi? Belk? Bergston? Bothwell?
Here.
Bowen? Brown?
Here.
Burke? Carpenter?
Here.
Cole?
Here.
D. Moranville?
Here.
Dunfield?
Here.
Esses?
Here.
Gammon? Gillian King? Grover?
Here.
Hammond? Hart? Heatherman?
Here.
Alec Hildreth? Derek Hildreth?
Here.
Huffman?
Here.
Javin?
Here.
Carmali?
Here.
Kidd? King?
Here.
Kulkarni?
Here.
Leverett?
Here.
Mari?
Here.
Marshall? Morgan? Neatery?
Here.
Orth?
Here.
Orzakowski?
Here.
Pelton?
Here.
Penny? Riffle?
Here.
Roman? Smith?
Here.
Spellman?
Here.
Spencer?
Here.
Sullivan? Tile?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Chumlin?
Here.
Wessel?
Here.
Wilhelm?
Here.
And Whitmer.
Here.
All right, moving directors real quick. Clark? Cruz? Gertson? Jennings? Pick?
Here.
Lundeen?
Here.
McIntosh? McKenzie? Minu? Picer? Sedlacek? Tuttle?
Here.
Underwood? Valdez? And Works. Sorry, guys, forgot. We have 36 senators present, 4 excused, and 11 absent.
All right, with that, we'll now move into first open period. So if you all could close your laptops for us. Our first open period speaker this evening is James Lynn with the Campus Bike Repair Shop.
Hi everyone, nice to see you. So this is really impromptu. Basically, I just decided yesterday that I would come speak to you guys on this idea of a campus bike repair shop. So a little bit about me. My name's James, first year master's, came from Maryland. We have a great bike shop, bike repair shop system in place. Basically, students go in, they get their bikes repaired for free. And that's what I want to see here, basically, to get started. So I know that Kansas State specifically, we're kind of a little slow to implement sustainable features and get programs set in stone. So I'm here to help kind of move that forward. And so I have a whole proposal set out that I wrote up. And as a member and a representative of the UGB, I got Corey Williamson, the exec director of the union, to help sponsor me if I get two things together. Basically, I need student support for a bike repair shop, and I need a space central, about 2,000 square feet for this bike repair shop. And that's why I'm here, to garner student interest and hopefully find a central location where I can hopefully implement this project. Going forward, I know there's a free Green Apple bike system where people can just, I guess, take a bike whenever they see a Green Apple bike, but it's not conducive to actual sustainable transportation because having your own bike is much better, and it's not a low-cost bike that can easily break down. So most people probably have their own bikes on campus here, but where do you go when your bike needs greasing, when you need a tire replaced, or basically just any sort of maintenance? Well, you would go to one of the bike repair shops outside of town, which probably charge you money. I've never been, but I think it would be a good idea to actually have a bike repair shop on campus where you could use student fees to support this system. Basically, you would have students as workers, and then you might have like a top professional bike repairer to teach them and train them. And then you can have interns or just people that volunteer to learn how to repair bikes. So that's my idea right now. And I want to promote bike repair education and bike safety as well. So basically, we could also do a lot of things with this. Just depends on what the actual students want, and that's why I'm here. Benefits to the university. So environmentally, a bike repair shop is one that will help support bike infrastructure on campus, low impact transportation, reduce noise pollution, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality indirectly. And we would also use donations from other places to first finance the bike repair shop. And economically, the bike repair shop will facilitate student employment, professional development, and help reduce the travel costs from driving around. It will reduce road congestion, improve, basically reduce travel accidents with less cars on the road. With the bike shop, you could also do qualitative and quantitative studies. So there's a lot of researchers on this university, and they could do commuter health, behaviors and attitudes towards bikers. A lot of research, essentially. Social benefits. So with the bike repair shop, you can bring together common people with the interest of biking and advancing their knowledge with bike-related opportunities. Yeah, outside of the repair shop, the act of biking physically is engaging, interesting, and it's good to basically promote and stimulate your mental capacity by traversing complicated terrains. It releases endorphins, improves blood circulation, enhances your mood, and promotes brain stimulation. These are all the benefits of a bike repair shop, and this is why you should support it. So my current budget right now is 10,000, but that was because I was planning on applying for the Green Action Fund, but it didn't go through because I needed these two things: student interest and a space on campus. So I think with that, I'll just take questions because I don't really need to go into the budget without those two first things.
All right, with that, what questions are there for our speaker? Intern Beasley.
Hi, thank you so much for coming out this evening. So my question is, do you have a place in mind already that you would like to see the bike shop placed?
So I personally want it at the Union where everyone usually goes. It's central, and I think it would be a great place. But the thing is, there's no space. So anywhere around there, facilities-wise, I would need to talk to or get a hold of to figure out. But somewhere around the Union and hopefully central. Definitely not at the rec because that's on the edge of campus, but yeah, somewhere central.
Further questions? Senator Cole.
Hi, I just also wanted to thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. My first question is, have you thought about maybe establishing it as a nonprofit with an endowment so it just sustains itself?
Can you go into further detail with that?
Yeah, so an endowment is a fund that board would elect to invest in certain areas, and they would use the returns to fund the project.
Like a foundation that gets interest, that you would use the interest to pay for the actual funding and support.
It would be returns on the endowment, yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. We have the accounting services of the Union that we could utilize. It's just the funding's there. We could easily get the funding. This is a very sustainable option for the campus. We can either get it from the student privilege fees, Green Action Fund, a bunch of different sustainable systems in place. The money's not the issue. It's the student involvement and the actual place to locate this. I'm only asking for a 200 square feet location on campus, which is a small room, essentially. So, I mean, that's a good idea, too, to support the actual sponsorship of the repair shop, but the issues I'm going towards right now are those two that I mentioned. So.
Further questions? Intern Hines.
Thank you for coming. This is definitely something that campus potentially could use. Does your $10,000 budget, excuse me, does your $10,000 budget include for that full-time head specialist person?
Oh yeah. So in my breakdown of the budget, I have 5,000 for actual equipment and 5,000 for workers. Professional bike repair mechanic. I gave them a $10 to $12 per hour wage, and the hourly wage per week I haven't decided yet. So I just threw down 5,000 for the professional staff with a $10 to $12 wage per hour. I haven't calculated the actual per year cost of the mechanic, so that would definitely need to be considered. Yeah.
Further questions for our speaker? Senator King?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a question. Is it 200 square feet or is it 2,000?
2,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
2,000. That's
200 is a little small. So.
Director Lundin?
Have you talked to parking services yet about this?
So I can't talk to them yet because I need student interest. I'm not gonna go and ask, give me a space. I got, people that want this. I don't have anyone that wants this yet. Parking services, they'll definitely support me. I know there's a space manager. I can't say I know that they'll support me, but I know that the executive director will support me, and with the union's support, obviously, we'll have increasing support. So,
Senator Armstrong?
Do you have to have a petition signed or something that you'll give word to the students and the staff after you inform them about this petition? project?
So a petition would actually be helpful, like to have a list of all the students that want this program set up. I haven't thought too in depth about a petition, but I've thought about it, and I think we should, or I should start it. But I really don't know the actual how I would go about it, essentially.
Vice President Pitts.
So if you aren't able to acquire the 2,000 square foot space, would you be willing to make this a more mobile or stationary bike repair shop that you could have on Bosco Plaza, maybe once a month, once a week, something like that? That would be a little bit more versatile.
So you're saying if I get the space,
If you don't get the space.
if I don't get the space, how would I actually see it through and have it like in an open space?
Yeah. Would you be willing? Yeah, like a pop-up shop.
I see. That's a good idea, yeah. I'm open to it. Definitely open to it, yeah.
We're pretty limited for space on campus.
Yeah, I know that. You guys are spread out, but you don't have the infrastructure to support a bunch of ideas, so.
I also follow.
Please.
I also know, and engineers in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, but that the engineering department has a good relationship with Green Apple Bikes and working on those. Am I right? Yeah. So working on those, do you think it's something that could be? Okay, I feel like anyways, I've heard of it. Would this be something you'd be willing to house in the College of Engineering with students within that, or something? Could
So
you work with a college instead of the union?
So what are you saying? Are you saying to use the engineering building as a room?
Well, okay. Okay, who knows about this?
So,
Ollie.
yeah, so engineering ambassadors, they used to do an event like once a semester where they would go and repair a bunch of Green Apple bikes, but Lacey, they did that at their facility, so
They want to do it eventually.
no, they wouldn't bring the bikes here to repair.
Never mind.
No, I know where the Green Apple Bikes are repaired. It's in a basement, in town somewhere. It's far off, but they have air compressors to blow up all the tires. They have actual mechanics that know how to do the work in that little basement. I want this to be in-house, so.
Interim Coordinator Bothwell.
I was wondering if you would provide us your contact information. I think I have a couple students in mind who would be really interested in helping you, so I was hoping to get that.
That's why I'm here, to get contacts, so I would love to do that.
James, could you share your email maybe with the group?
Right now, or just?
Would you be okay
I
sharing
can
your email?
just throw it out right now, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So James Lin, my name, email jslin at ksu.edu.
Thank you.
Further questions? Director Savlachik.
So you have a proposal ready to go, you said?
Yeah, it's right here, yeah.
Is that something you're willing to share with other people? Is that something you're prepared to share with other people at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care, it's just free information. Yeah.
Any follow-up questions? Okay. Further questions for James? If not, wait, there's two, sorry. Chair Spellman.
Have you talked to anyone on administrations, like finance?
Administrations for the campus. So I've talked to Corey, the union exec, Craig Johnson, the associate director of operations for K-State Union, Steve Martini, director of recreation services. They like the idea. I think it's a good proposal that I wrote up, actually. They like the proposal, but I haven't talked to any of the administrators yet. Yep.
Intern Beasley.
You mentioned earlier that you would like to use this bike shop to gather statistics about bike use on and off campus. This is something that Green Apple Bike has done in the past when researching how to implement their program. Mm-hmm. Would you be opposed to using Green Apple Bike's existing platform to create a on-campus Green Apple student public bike shop? Would you be opposed to working with Green Apple Bikes?
Not really.
Intern Hines.
So have you thought about having, maybe instead of one set location, having, let's say, once a month or something, an event where it's like, hey, from 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon on Saturday, come and you can get your stuff fixed. Lacey?
Yeah, so I think your friend here mentioned something similar, but I would be cool with it if it gets me to fix my bike. Yeah.
All right, are there any more questions? Intern Beasley.
I'm sorry. So, do you think that this bike shop could also address the problem of lost bikes and abandoned bikes on campus?
We're here to fix bikes, not to find people's bikes. It could be, I don't know. That's not my goal right here, but we'll think about it.
All right, are there any more questions for our speaker?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you so much, James. All right, our next speakers for first open period are Chris Vitals and Fatima Jagouri with the Student Veterans Association.
Okay, yeah, our advisor, Ish, is gonna.
Little display settings. Yeah, the top middle button. Swap.
Oh, so that's fine.
You can.
Good? Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us again. Last time I was a little bit nervous coming up here. I have a B in public speaking now, so I feel a little better. Thank you. It's like 81. So. Exactly. It's easy to get degrees, absolutely. So last time, just to kind of recap, we came up here to talk about our organization and to kind of put a face in front of our organization to show our goals and what we were aiming towards. And we're actually really proud to say that in about 2 weeks, March 23rd and 24th, we're happy to host a large conference here, and it's called the Kansas Student Veterans Association Consortium. It's the 23rd and 24th, like I said. It's a large conference where we bring all the different veteran organizations from different schools in Kansas, and we bring them here to one place, and we show them what the K-State family really is and how we have built our organization, what we found works for us, what we found out didn't work so well, and how we all can learn as a group and share an experience. The 24th, that Sunday, is mainly a day for breakout sessions and workshops for the different veterans, and it's more for professional development, for VA matters, and for building the organization. However, the 23rd at 5 o'clock. Oh, you already have it up. Okay, cool. Next slide. We're gonna add slides. So we were actually really happy to bring a guest speaker. We were able to, due to the efforts of the DPC, the Diversity Committee, we worked with them and we were able to garner enough money in a budget to be able to bring a very special speaker. Her name is Sergeant Kirsty Enos. She is a medically retired Marine. She was in a Chinook that got shot down in Afghanistan back in 2012. She suffered injuries to her brain, her spine, her shoulder, and unfortunately she had to lose her leg and have it amputated. However, she didn't let that bring her down, very characteristic of our service members and Marines. She decided to pick up snowboarding and rock climbing, and she is deciding to be the first handicapped woman to climb all 7 summits of the world. So far, she's got Kilimanjaro underneath her belt, which is the highest in Africa and the highest above sea level, I think, pretty sure. but I have an 81 in public speaking. I'm not a geographer either. But she also has competed, or she has performed in charities. She was just recently over in England. She walked 1,000 miles over 72 days with the Royal Prince Henry, who is also a veteran, for the Walking with Wounded. So she works heavily with these different charities for veterans and for women's empowerment groups, Glam for Good, building homes for veterans, houses for heroes. And we wanted to bring her here to share not only what veterans stand for and what we have as ideals, as you can see a couple pictures up there, but just she also brings a message of her own transition from being, a service member into a student. She has 2 master's degrees and a doctorate, which says a lot. She graduated with honors, and my bachelor's is kicking my ass so far. So she has a lot to bring to the table, and we wanted to bring her not only to empower our own students and student veterans, but to share and bring a little bit more diversity to this to the university, and to create just a more inclusive, diverse K-State family. So, like I said, just to reiterate, it's going to be March 23rd at 5 o'clock is when her speaking is, and we're coming here to basically invite everybody. We're not asking for anything in return. We are already pushed it through every listserv that we can find, faculty as well. We talked to Dr. Bosco. He was very generous enough to push it out to the faculty in the university. We have listservs going for veterans. It's going to be in K-State Today, KS Unite Weekly, and the Collegian, and hopefully on any radio station that takes us. So we just want to talk to everybody here and hope that if you know any department heads, if you know anybody that you'd like to spread the information to, and honestly, if you'd like to come, it's in the ballroom in the Union, 5 o'clock per hour, it's free. We just want as many people to just kind of build a family. So that's pretty much it.
I have something to add to that. This is Women's History Month, so this is a woman that is making history right now. So this is an amazing thing for you to get, right? Yeah, like that. So invite everybody that you can. I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to listen to an actual hero speak. We don't get that every day. So also she's taking time from her training to climb Mount Everest
the week
to
after.
come here for a day. So come out, show your support. Let us actually have her look down in the audience and see the full auditorium.
Maybe I should have led with that, because originally we were on the 30th and 31st of March, but she just so happened to be on her expedition at that time. So there was a little schedule conflict, and she happily said, I will come a week earlier. So she really does want to be here and spread her message. So should have led with that, actually.
Please come out, guys.
That's it.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our speakers? Senator King.
Where's the event at and at what time?
It's going to be, again, at 5 o'clock in the Union Ballroom. We have over 200 seats set up with, 200 seats in the Union Ballroom at 5 o'clock. And it's free to students.
So it's and then business building?
Oh, no, that is, that's for the next day for the work, for the veterans, for all the chapters, which we actually still encourage anybody else to come as well. If any one of you all would like to learn, we're a club just like anybody else. We just happen to gripe and complain about VA. I mean, if you want to be there for that, by all means.
No, we have other workshops, and it's actually really helpful. We've taken, thank you for your support for having us go to NatCon. We've taken that knowledge, we've come back, and we're actually trying to spread it through the rest of the other schools in Kansas that are trying to build their chapters or get some information that weren't able to go to NatCon. So again, that's thanks to you guys, but we are asking for more volunteers and more support. So come out and support us for our awesome consortium, and then our fitness challenge next month. Don't worry, we'll come back and remind you.
I'll have an 85 in public speaking by now.
All right, further questions? Seeing none, thank you all so much for coming tonight. With that, are there any more speakers for first open period? All right, seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Wilhelm.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections, the minutes are approved. We'll now move to announcements for the week. Proxies: Alec Hildreth for Marshall, D. Moranville for Arnoldy, Esses for Gilliland King, and Wilhelm for Birchton. SGA members of the week this week are the Elections Commissioner and all members of the Elections Committee for their hard work in administering the election system this year. So if we could give them a round of applause. And the quote of the week this week: everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Albert Einstein. Commendations. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 41? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move we consider Resolution 41. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Consider Resolution 41. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 18-1941, commendation to the Kansas Board of Regents and KSU Legislative Advocates by the Governmental Relations Committee. Whereas budgetary challenges have led to repeated callbacks of allocated funds and other budget cuts across the Kansas State University KSU campus, whereas these callbacks reduce the university's ability to fulfill its mission to foster excellent teaching, research, and service that develop a highly skilled and educated citizenry necessary to advancing the well-being of Kansas, the nation, and the international community. Whereas the mission of the Kansas Board of Regents is to pursue measurable continuous improvement in the quality and effectiveness of the public post-secondary educational system in Kansas and advocate powerfully on behalf of the state's educational institutions. Whereas the KBOR has requested $50 million for four-year institutions for the upcoming fiscal year 2020. Whereas on February 12, 2019, the KSU Legislative Advocates, consisting of 15 student representatives from KSU, attended State Higher Education Day alongside students from other KBOR public institutions, including Emporia State University, Fort Hays State University, Pittsburgh State University, University of Kansas, and Washburn University. Whereas the central matter of the KSU Legislative Advocates champion for was the $50 million request from the KBOR. Whereas on February 13th of 2019, the KBOR Chair Dennis Mullen sent a letter to all state legislators accompanying the board's request with a clear, persuasive argument for the necessity of restoring state funding for Kansas's public universities. And whereas this is a partner resolution to one passed by the KSU Faculty Senate on March 5th, 2019, that extended sincere appreciation on behalf of the university's community, whom we represent, for this champion of the university's mission and articulation of its financial needs. Be it resolved that, Section 1, Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU SGA, commends the Kansas Board of Regents for their continued advocacy on behalf of KSU's financial needs. Section 2, KSU SGA commends the KSU Legislative Advocates for their work in sharing the student perspective on higher education funding and KBOR's $50 million request. Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to KBOR President and CEO Blake Flanders, KBOR Chair Dennis Mullen, KBOR Vice Chair Shane Bangerter, KBOR members Ann Brando Morgua, Bill Philborn, Mark Hutton, Dave Murfin, Alan Schmidt, Daniel Thomas, and Helen Van Etten, University President Richard B. Myers, Chief Governmental Relations Officer Dr. Sue Peterson, and State Relations Director Faith Tuttle.
With that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Orzechowski.
Correction, can we remove line 3 because it's empty and
Yeah, okay. Further questions or corrections? Intern Oxner.
I move that we approve this resolution unanimously.
Can we just hold off on that for 1 second? Are there any other questions or corrections?
I have a question actually.
Senator Orzechowski.
Should it be the University of Kansas or just University of Kansas?
Where?
In line
25 and 26.
Yeah, sorry. What's their
Yeah, we can change that.
Which one is
title
correct?
is University.
It is University of Kansas? Okay, so it's correct. Yeah.
All right, further questions or corrections for the author? If not, Intern Oxner.
I move we approve resolution 18-1941 unanimously. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 18-1941 unanimously. If there are no objections, this resolution is approved unanimously. If we could give the KSU Legislative Advocates a round of applause. moving on, is there a motion to consider Resolution 42? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider Resolution 42.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we consider Resolution 42. Will the author please come forward?
Bill 18-1942, Commendation to the Kansas State University Sales Team by Hannah Heatherman, whereas the University of Toledo hosted an invitational sales competition February 21st through 23rd, 2019 in Toledo, Ohio. Whereas the University of Toledo invitational sales competition consisted of 36 top university sales teams from across the country. Whereas sales competitions allow for students to test their selling skills against peers from top sales programs across the country through role-playing scenarios. Whereas Caitlin Porter, junior in management, took second place in the junior division. Whereas Katie Horton, sophomore in professional strategic selling, took third place in the freshman-sophomore division. Whereas Kansas State University sales team won first place at the competition. And whereas the Kansas State University sales team is housed in the College of Business Administration's National Strategic Selling Institute, which has been named one of the top sales programs in the country for 7 straight years by the Sales Education Foundation. Be it resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends the Kansas State University sales team for their dedication and recent success at the University of Toledo Invitational Sales Competition. Section 2. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution be sent to students Caitlin Porter and Katie Horton, National Strategic Selling Institute Director Don Dieter, College of Business Administration Dean Kevin Gwinner, and Kansas State University President Richard B. Myers.
With that, are there any questions or corrections? Intern Glasscock.
Correction, line 3 on this resolution is also blank. Can we get that removed?
Yep.
Thank you.
Further questions or corrections? Senator Hildreth.
Yeah, on line 14-ish, you read it as sales programs, but...
Yeah, I saw that right before getting up. We'll correct that.
You have it? Okay.
Yep.
Further questions? Senator Needery.
I just have a suggestion, I guess. I think that the sales team advisor would maybe really appreciate a copy too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's who went with them, so I think that's why, but we'll do that.
Further questions, corrections, or suggestions? I do have one. Line 37, Myers. The spelling of Myers.
Yes. Okay.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this resolution? Cox City Spencer.
I move we approve this resolution unanimously.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 42 unanimously. If there are no objections, Resolution 42 is approved unanimously. All right, we'll now move to approval of appointments. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 43? Intern Booz.
I move to consider Resolution 43.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 43. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 18-1943, approval of new student senators. Whereas the Senate Operations Committee follows a specific process in order to fill student senator vacancies, whereas there are currently 2 vacancies for student senators within the College of Engineering, whereas all of the individuals listed in the 2018 election results for the College of Engineering have been contacted, whereas Jonathan Rodriguez has accepted 1 vacant position. Whereas, in keeping with the process to fill vacancies, the College of Engineering Council has submitted a nomination to the Senate Operations Committee, and whereas Dylan Boykin has been nominated for the remaining position. Be it resolved that Section 1, Jonathan Rodriguez be approved as student senator for the College of Engineering. Section 2, Dylan Boykin be approved as student senator for the College of Engineering.
With that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Orskowski.
Line 15, it should be Engineering Student Council instead of College of Engineering Council.
Okay.
Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this resolution? Intern Glasscock.
I move to approve resolution 43 unanimously.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 43 unanimously. If there are no objections, resolution 43 is approved. Dylan and Johnny, if you could come to the room, please, to get sworn in. All right, well, if you could raise your right hand, I'm going to read a statement, and at the end, if you could say, I do. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Student Senator and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Perfect. If you both could introduce yourselves, you can go ahead and put your hands down. Name, major, hometown, and favorite smell.
All right. Hi, my name is Jonathan Rodriguez. I'm from Kansas City. I'm majoring in electrical engineering and minoring in political science. My favorite smell, I like reading, so I like the smell of books.
Hi, my name's Dylan Boykin, and I'm majoring in chemical engineering. I'm from Granbury, Texas, and my favorite smell is like fresh cut grass.
All right, can we give our new senators a round of applause? All right, we will now move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Spellman.
Okay, so some people were at yesterday's meeting, but for those who were not, GR had a 2-hour-long meeting last night. So I'd like to give them a little shout out for sticking through it and staying the entire time and being engaged the entire time. Last night, we were kind of getting to the nitty-gritty details of planning the town hall with the city commissioners regarding housing issues in Manhattan. Some of the things that we were finalizing, the date, the time, and the location. For the date, we decided to do it on the 28th. It'll be the very last day of Senate. Right before then, we will have the banquet. We'll come into either Wildcat Chambers, or the Town Hall and Leadership Studies. We're still finalizing the location. But it will be on the 28th, starting at 7 p.m. Roll call will be taken before, so all senators and everyone is expected and encouraged to be here, especially for the last night. Regarding the members that have confirmed, we've had 2 city commissioners that have confirmed, Usha Reddy and Linda Morris. We're trying to get all 5 on board. If all 5 commissioners are available, the Kansas Open Meetings Act will allow us to have it a public meeting. So it'll be publicized to the rest of the Manhattan community, and hopefully we'll get a lot of community members that way as well. We're also trying to advertise it to K-State students. So not only for us, but for everyone outside of this room as well. We want them to come and feel welcome in this environment. Senate, after the town hall, Senate will start at 8:30. Again, it'll be a long night, but this is something really important and something that we were elected to do. So I encourage you all to be engaged throughout the entire process, both during the town hall and for the rest of Senate. And then the week before, the 21st, we're gonna have an educational presentation for everyone. So that'll go over kind of what the issues have been in the past, kind of outlining the issues that are happening in the Manhattan community, stuff that students outside of this room and ourselves have been affected for the past couple years. And then hopefully that'll help us for the 28th. So we'll be informed, we'll be able to ask questions and participate for that as well. The last thing I have for us is a few weeks ago we did GR presentations. We're going to continue that tonight. So Senator Orzechowski and Dee Moranville are going to talk to us about affirmative consent, and I yield the rest of my time to them. Do y'all have questions for me?
Any questions for Chair Spellman? All right, if not, Senator Dee Moranville and Senator Orzechowski, if you could come to the front.
All right, everyone. So as Haley said, we are going to this evening just go over what affirmative consent is, just kind of have a discussion on some of the language that currently exists in Kansas, what standards have been used by other states, and then what we in Kansas and as student government can potentially do to move this forward for ourselves and for our state. So with that, we're going to start with Emma and Gavin.
All right, so first kind of what we're going to get started on, if you could switch it to the next slide really quick.
So what is affirmative consent exactly? So I put up here the verbatim definition of what affirmative consent is. So affirmative consent is a knowing, voluntary, and mutual decision among all participants to engage in sexual activity. Consent can be given by words or actions as long as those words or actions create clear permission regarding willingness to engage in the sexual activity. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's really important to know, to look at this underlined and know it is knowing, voluntary, and mutual decision, that it can be given by words or actions, and that it is a willingness to engage. So that kind of leads us into why it's important or why it matters. So this is a shift from the no means no framework that has been in place for what consent is. How many of you have heard no means no before? Like for this? Okay. So essentially the problems with no means no is it puts the burden on the person to resist instead of putting it on the person. So the yes means yes framework shifts that and takes that burden from that person. Something else that's kind of important with it, it protects the people involved. So yes means yes removes ambiguity. Again, affirmative consent is just kind of along those lines. And then it's a gender-free standard. So this makes sure that everyone's needs, desires, and boundaries are respected and they are important. It's just as important as anyone else's. Something that kind of matters along with this is that Kansas doesn't have anything in place for the definition of what consent is or any kind of affirmative consent laws. So we're kind of moving on to a quick break. So do you guys have any questions about what affirmative consent is or about why it matters? Just really quick.
We're pausing here so that if people have questions about that standard, so next we're going to discuss like what other states have been doing and what we can do, but we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with what affirmative consent is and what it isn't, because sometimes there's some confusion on things. Like a common one that I have heard in response to affirmative consent is that you would have to sign a contract, and that is just not true unless the state law is written very poorly. So that's kind of why we wanted to open it up for questions now, so that if people had questions, we can kind of cover those before going into what other states and areas are doing on this. Any questions? All right, cool. So then with that, I guess I'm going to discuss what some of the other states in the country have been doing on this matter. So California was the first state to put in place what we would consider an affirmative consent law, and that was with Senate Bill 967, and that's actually where we kind of get the nickname, the yes means yes, comes from that. And it's important, so the key takeaway from that law is that it covers both high school and college. So it's not just for universities putting in place these policies, it's also for any institution that receives state funding. So the way that the law is worded is any institution that receives state funding from the state of California has to have an affirmative consent policy in place. And then in New York, that one's nicknamed Enough is Enough, and that one's really similar. It only covers colleges, but again, this is the colleges that receive funding from New York have to put in place this standard, basically. So they have to have in their like university language, in their like governing for the university, they have to have this affirmative consent standard. And this is actually the one that Emma and I kind of tend to prefer is the New York language, and that was what was quoted on the first slide, was the language from the New York law. And the reason is it's a little better as far as making clear kind of that consent can be given, affirmative consent can be given in action. It doesn't have to be given verbally. So that's kind of why we tend to like that one there. So those are kind of the two big ones that have kind of been pushed in this domain. But then here we can kind of see a map of every state in the country and what all of them are doing. So the key is very hard to read, but the colors are what matters. So going from top to bottom there on the key, red is states that have no standard and are not working towards one. Yellow, states that don't have a standard but are working towards one. Green, statewide legislation is passed and has been signed by the governor. So you can see New York up there, they're in green. And then light green is they have a campus sexual assault legislation, but it does not have an affirmative consent standard. So they've done something similar, but it doesn't have the affirmative consent standard in it. And then California is the unique outlier there with both college and high school being put under their banner with that one. So with that then, we can look at what we in Kansas can do. So there are a couple avenues, just kind of starting from the bottom working the way up. So KBOR could implement this standard for all of these state institutions. This is something that they could do. They could put in place an affirmative consent standard that would apply in a very similar way to other states and what they've done. We could just directly copy their legislation. So if we like New York's law, we could just copy it and basically say this is our law now. And that could be the way that we go about this. And then the last way is to actually define consent in state law. So as Emma mentioned, it is undefined right now in Kansas. Basically, what is defined is what is not consent. But by kind of having an actual definition to reference each site would really clear things up. This has the benefit of being universal, and it also covers jurisdictions that are outside campus control. So this is important, just generally because not everywhere is under campus control, and not every person that is our age is at a university. So this kind of just, like I said, it's universal, and I think that's the benefit there. But again, just kind of you move through as far as up the levels, and they become increasingly difficult just because you're working with a larger bureaucracy, basically. Yeah. So with that, does anybody have any questions about the entire presentation then? Here we have our further reading slide as well, so you can actually see the text of the state laws, and we can send this out to anybody that would like it, or everybody. Yeah, but are there any questions? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for talking about this. I think it's a really important issue. But what are the rates like, or how dramatic are these rates decreased about the states that do have passed these laws?
That's a good question, Matt.
I do not know that off the top of my head. I would say that, yeah, I do not know that off the top of my head. I can get that information though. Yeah, we were kind of focused on just providing definitions more than anything. Yeah, that's something that I would be interested in knowing as well. So I'll look into that. But yeah, I do not know. Any other questions?
What's up? If we were to present this to a legislator or congressman and we faced reluctance of changing these laws, how would we justify it and react to that negativity in order to get them to be on board with it?
So I guess which kind of reluctance would you foresee?
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
if obviously this legislation is not nationwide for a reason. So if we were to bring this to Topeka, to bring it statewide, and you're talking to your legislators saying, we want to change this, we want to make this a statewide campus policy, how would they react? If they reacted poorly, how would you come back with that?
Yeah, so I guess I would start by saying that first off, what's important to note again here is that right now, Kansas has no definition. So there is no definition of consent. There's only a definition of what isn't consent. So even if we don't put in place a true affirmative consent standard, just having some definition of of how consent is given and what it is. I guess, for example, so I would cite the American Institute of Lawyers, or legal institution. They have a definition. It's a bunch of lawyers, basically, and they have a definition that is a little different. They said for consent is a person's willingness to engage in a specific act of sexual penetration or sexual contact. And they said it can be maybe expressed or it may be inferred from behavior, both action and inaction, in the context of all the circumstances. So as you can see, so that's a little different than this definition here. This kind of has a harder standard to it. It says it's knowing and voluntarily, and then this is more like it can be inferred, so it kind of has a little more give with it. So that's, I guess, where I would go with it, is I would say there are other standards we can put in place if this one isn't the one people like, but just having no standard is causing problems, because when people are reporting situations, it places the burden on you to basically remove yourself from the situation. And this kind of changes the language and changes the framing of everything to say that, you should be willingly engaging in activities. So you shouldn't have to actively remove yourself in order to not want to willingly engage in something, if that makes sense. I think I kind of rambled around a little bit, but yeah, basically the important thing to note when talking to legislators specifically is that there are other standards, and that any standard is better than our no standard that we have right now. Yeah.
Can I add
something to that. So
Yep.
at State Higher Ed Day, like when we talked about this, I met with a couple different legislators and had really good conversation on this. So there was a senator that I met with that he was like, why are you saying that this should only apply to universities? He was like, why are you not trying to make this a statewide law? So I think like, and yeah, he was a Democrat, but like, and not that that matters, but like he was already kind of going there, like that was the next logical step. And then I met with a representative who, when we first presented it, she said, I'm gonna be honest, I hate this, like I don't like this. And she gave her reasons, but then like we had a conversation with her, and at the end she was like, okay, I don't know that I would support it. Or she's like, I'm not sure what I would do, but I'm definitely more open to it than I was when you first talked about it and when I first heard about it. So I think having that education piece too, and like bringing in everything Matt said, like especially I think older lawmakers who don't necessarily know and understand like changing climates and say things that might be problematic when they first hear about it, like they, after having a conversation and having that education, do better with it. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Lily. Any other questions? All right. If not, thank you all.
Thank you. All right, with that, are there any more committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Colburn.
Hi, everyone. So the special committee introduced three bills last week. Two of which we held in committee for another week. It was Bill 68 and then Bill 70. So the changes to the intern program and the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, or DEI. So we held those in committee just because we had some questions on the intern bill that we just needed resolved before we felt comfortable bringing it to Senate, just with practice versus policy and working with new student services specifically is what we were talking about, and how that last point on the legislation of the legislative duty of intern coordinators should look. We just wanted a little more time to talk about that, so that's why that's not on the agenda today. And then the creation of DEI, after the question that Speaker Kelly brought up last week about the bylaws and those changes, you'll notice that there is Bill 79 that changes the pro tem duties to remove the Senate demographic survey from those duties. So we decided to go ahead and hold DEI so that we can introduce the pro tem legislation changes this week, and then next time that we meet, we can go ahead and pass both at the same time should we choose, or if you all decide not to pass the creation of DEI, though I don't think you should do that. I don't know if I can say that, but anyway, then we don't have to pass the pro tem changes if that change is not made. So we just decided for legislative reasons to hold that one back. But as always, we are going to be meeting again to discuss those bills. It's probably going to look like we're going to meet the Sunday that we get back from spring break, which is March 17th, at 6 o'clock as normal. I will let you know if that time is different, but of course, always welcome any feedback on either of those bills, because we will be talking about them and deciding how to refer them back.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our speaker? All right, seeing none, are there any more committee chairs who would like to give a report? If not, are there any directors who would like to give a report? President Keel.
Sorry, I'm still wearing my coat because I'm freezing cold. So a couple of things. One, we are exploring the use of a university-wide attendance policy. So there's a group that's going to be getting together with Faculty Senate, a couple other individuals from campus after break to look at a policy that Iowa State has in place, if you want to look at that, and seeing what we can implement here, because right now K-State has absolutely nothing in regards to attendance policies, so it's really up to the faculty member. And even if you have a university excuse such as like athletics or a curricular activity from another class, something like that, there's nothing to say that your professor can't require you to still be in their class. So we really want to make sure that we get that cleared up for students, hopefully have something through by the end of the semester. Calendar committee is a group that meets usually twice a year, and we set the calendar for the university and give a proposal to the Kansas Board of Regents on a 3-year cycle. We passed out of committee a calendar for the next 3 years after next year. Faculty Senate sent it back to calendar committee. KBOR used to have a rule that we had to change our spring break based on when their March meeting was, so that's why our spring break is so early this year. They actually have since taken that rule out. So we're going to look at implementing a spring break that would be consistent each and every year so students know what to expect. So it always fall on the same timeline as far as the semester goes. And then one last thing, kind of going along with the commendation that was approved tonight for legislative advocates. We've heard back from KBOR and some legislators, and they had such positive reviews of what we had said when we were in Topeka a couple of weeks ago. Really good comments, and they actually want us to come back and think it would be a good idea for us to go back and talk about funding again. So we're looking to take back our student body presidents, vice presidents, and the legislative directors from each of our regent institutions to go back to Topeka and really push on that $50 million. So hopefully that will bring good news. The fact that they're encouraging us to come back and talk about it again is good news in itself. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Chair Carpenter.
So this is just, I'm just curious, that's awesome that they've invited all of you back. Do you know when that might happen? Would it be this semester, or is it just kind of in the air?
I found out about this about 7 p.m., so no, not yet. Hopefully it would be within the next month, though.
Further questions?
This semester, yeah.
Sorry,
So-
further questions? Go ahead, Tristan.
Legislative Advocates is planning on going on the 20th. Is that the day that you're thinking of, or another day?
Probably another day, just because we have to coordinate with all of the regent institutions. So Faith and I are already talking about what that's going to look like for legislative advocates versus the student body presidents, vice presidents, and legislative directors that would be going back.
Are there any more questions? All right, seeing none, are there any more directors who would like to give a report? Elections Commissioner Shao.
So I wanted to update everyone about just the general process so far that we've had of addressing any potential changes to the statutes and where it's going to go in the future and what you guys can do to be involved. So following the elections, we had a lot of people reach out to us about potential changes, and so we got a list of things that people are interested in from individuals, as well as just things that the elections committee had thought of during the process. And so we made a list that we then presented to Senate Exec of all of the changes that we think should happen, and we asked them for help in prioritizing them, because we think all of these changes, since they are going to be pretty controversial, will have to be one bill at a time. So we wanted to try to get as much as we can done before the end of this Senate term. And so they gave us a list of priorities that they wanted us to address. They thought the best way to get a lot of opinions about it was to first discuss with student tribunal and the judicial branch, and then to present the ideas that we come up with to tribunal, get your guys' opinions, and then introduce legislation. So I wanted to talk about the first kind of decision that we made tonight of one of the questions that was prioritized, which was what to do in case of a disqualification of a candidate after the for student body president after the primary election. And so the options that we came up with, these were just all of the options that were discussed with the judicial board or judicial branch, and it was to not bring up anyone from the primary and to leave the remaining candidate as the only one on the ballot, which is what happened this year, to bring up the highest vote getter from the primary, like the third highest vote getter, and then so on, from the primary to the general election, bring up the highest vote getter if they have a certain percentage of votes, to allow write-ins for the general, to not have a primary, and to have a general that just has write-ins, and to completely change the election system. So after a lot of discussion with both, it was myself, Emily, and members of the judicial branch, we determined that the change we wanted to make was to bring up the highest vote getter from the primary to the general election. So I definitely at this point, for what you guys can do to get involved, is if you have any suggestions or comments about this, or you have questions about why we didn't like any of the options or why this is the one that we liked the best, please reach out to me by email preferably by next Friday, because I'll be, you know, celebrating spring break and want to write this legislation before then. So, but other than that, in the future, ideally, we'll introduce something to you, and then over the weekend, you guys can give feedback on it, and then we'll introduce it the next week into Senate. Additionally, when we get back from spring break, I'd like to have, I'm planning on hosting a meeting where everyone can come and like add to the list of things that we're already thinking about for changes and get everyone's suggestions. So we really want your guys' voice and input and what changes are going to be made going forward and what you guys would like to see. So that's what's happening.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our speaker? Seeing none, are there any more directors who would like to give a report? All right, if not, we'll now move into approval of minor allocations. Bill 63 is a travel allocation to Anthropology Club. They requested $400 and were recommended $400. Bill 64 is a travel allocation to Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. They requested $280 and were recommended $280. Bill 65 is a travel allocation to ASU Rotaract. They requested $500 and were recommended $200. Bill 66 is a travel allocation to On the Spot Improv. They requested $600 and were recommended $600. Bill 67 is a travel allocation to Sigma Tau Delta International English Honor Society. They requested $300 and were recommended $300. Are there any questions on the minor allocations? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? Senator King.
Move that we approve the minor allocations. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minor allocations. If there are no objections, the minor allocations are approved. We will now move into final action. Will the author of Bill 69 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
There have been no changes.
All right, you have first right to debate.
So this is the one bill the special committee didn't table from last week, if you remember. This bill is kind of making the smallest changes out of all of them. All that it's doing is adding the ability for the Phase 2 interns to be sworn in and for the intern coordinators to be the one to administrate that only in the case of interns as written in the bill. I would say that you should vote for it. A couple weeks ago, I said that this was one of my impeachable offenses, so you should vote for this so you don't have to impeach me.
Any questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate? If not, we will now move into a roll call vote on Bill 69.
Adams?
Yes.
Armstrong?
Yes.
Arnoldi?
Yes, by proxy, sorry.
Belk? Bergston?
Yes, by proxy.
Bothwell?
Yes.
Bowen? Boykin? Brown?
Yes.
Burke? Carpenter?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
DeMoranville?
Yes.
Dunfield?
Yes.
Esses?
Yes.
Gammon? Gillian King?
Yes, by proxy.
Grover?
Yes.
Hammond? Heatherman?
Yes.
Alec Hildreth?
Yes.
Derek Hildreth?
Yes.
Huffman?
Yes.
Javin?
Yes.
Carmali?
Yes.
Kidd? King?
Yes.
Kulkarni?
Yes.
Leverett?
Yes.
Mari?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes, by proxy.
Morgan?
Yes.
Neatery?
Yes.
Orth?
Yes.
Borzakowski?
Yes.
Pelton?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Riffle?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Present. Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Spellman?
Yes.
Spencer?
Yes.
Sullivan? Tile?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Chumlin?
Yes.
Wessel?
Yes.
Wilhelm?
Yes.
And Whitmer.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go back here real quick. Boykin, I think I missed you. Did you say yes or no?
Oh, I said yes.
Yes, okay. Is there anybody else I missed? All right. The bill passes 43 to 0.
All right, moving on, will the author of Bill 71 please come forward? Coordinator Bothwell.
I'm going to hold Bill 71 through 77 for bulk roll call.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to hold bills 71 through 77 for bulk roll call. If there are no objections, bills 71 through 77 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of bill 71 please come forward? Bill 71. It's an on-campus allocation. On-campus allocations committee. The legislation's on the podium. Is there a motion? Oh, no. You don't know if you need. All right, you have first rights to debate.
So I think this resolution is going to be very beneficial. International Week in the past has been a great success, and I think we should continue to fund International Week.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, we'll hold this for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 72 please come forward? First rights to debate.
So this event is also for Diversity Week, specifically within the Architecture, Planning, and Design College, and I think it's also a great use of dollars.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, Bill 72 will also be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 73 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No, everything's
All right, first rights to debate.
Okay, so this is to Engineers Without Borders. So they'll actually be traveling down to Guatemala and basically building a retaining wall and some other things. So they'll be getting some like actual applicable experience in their fields of study. So yeah, we recommended them $1,000.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
Did you say $700?
1,000. Oh, it's 700. Yes, 700.
Okay.
Yes.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate? If not, Bill 73 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 74 please come forward? Have any corrections been made?
No.
All right, first rights to debate.
So basically, this is to the KSU Tuba and Euphonium Society or Association. So they'll be going down to Iowa City, and they'll be able to basically meet with other performers, be able to see like presentations and actually do some of their own performances, and so they basically get to take what they're learning in their classes and apply it to the real world.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? If not, Bill 74 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 75 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, you have first rights to debate.
Okay, so this is to the National Society of Black Engineers. They will be going to their national convention in Detroit, Michigan. They'll get to meet with a bunch of industry professionals and workshops and get to basically like more develop themselves in their potential careers.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? If not, this bill will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 76 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, you have first right to debate.
Okay, so this is the pre-dental club. So basically, they'll be going to the Kansas City Mission of Mercy. So basically, they'll be providing, it's just like free dental procedures, and they'll be volunteering at that. So they'll be getting to like kind of do what their careers will be. So yeah.
All right, with that, are there any questions? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? If not, this bill will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 77 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, you have first right to debate.
Okay, so this is the Student Finance Association. So they will be going to New York, and they will basically get to meet with a bunch of industry professionals, get to meet with even some K-State alumni, and they're basically going to work on understanding like what more of their fields will be once they graduate from K-State, and they'll be able to bring that back and basically like change kind of how they operate the program on campus.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, thank you very much, Carson. We will now move into a bulk roll call vote on bills, what was it, 71 through 77?
Adams.
Yes to all.
Armstrong.
Yes to all.
Arnaldi.
Yes to all by proxy.
Belk. Bergston.
Yes to all by proxy.
Bothwell.
Yes to all.
Bowen. Boykin.
Yes to all.
Brown.
Yes to 71 through 76, abstain 77.
K. Burke. Carpenter.
Yes to all.
Cole.
Yes to all.
D. Moranville.
Yes to all.
Dunfield.
Yes to all.
Esses.
Yes to all.
Gammon. Gillian King.
Yes to all by proxy.
Grover. Hammond. Heatherman.
Yes to all.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes to all.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes to all.
Reed Huffman.
Yes to all.
Yes
Javin.
to all.
Carmali.
Yes to all.
Kidd. King. Kulkarni.
Yes to all.
Leverett.
Yes to all.
Mari.
Yes to all.
Marshall.
Yes to all by proxy.
Morgan.
Yes to all.
Neatery.
Yes to all.
Orth.
Yes to all.
Orzakowski.
Yes to all.
Pelton.
Yes to all.
Penny.
Yes to all.
Riffle.
Yes to all.
Rodriguez.
Yes to all.
Roman.
Yes to all.
Smith.
Yes to all.
Spellman.
Yes to all.
Spencer.
Yes to all.
Sullivan. Tile.
Yes to all.
Thompson.
Yes to all.
Chumlin.
Yes to all.
Wessel.
Yes to all.
Wilhelm.
Yes to all.
And Whitmer.
Yes to all.
In the King.
Yes to all.
Okay, so all the bills pass 43 to 0 except for Bill 77, which passes 43 to 1.
All right, with that, we will now move into introduction to minor allocations. Is there a motion to consider the minor allocations? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider the minor allocations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider the minor allocations. Bill 78 is an on-campus allocation to KSU Rotaract. They requested $620 and were recommended $270. Are there any questions on our minor allocation? All right, seeing none, we'll now move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 44? Caucus Leader Spencer.
I move that we consider Resolution 44.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 44. Will the author please come forward? Senator Brown.
I move the author be allowed to summarize. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Hi, so this is just a bill amending or approving the amendments that the College Council for the College of Business has made to their constitution, whereas clauses almost exactly the same as Ag Council's constitution a couple weeks ago. You'll see that the whole thing is in italics because they pretty much nothing was left existing from their old constitution that's currently chartered in our statutes. So Bill said to just put it there. That's all.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, I assume this will be referred to Senate Operations Committee? Okay. Bill 44 will be referred to Senate Operations Committee, resolution. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 45? Intern Hines.
I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was. All right, Intern Booth.
I move to consider Resolution 45. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 45. Will the author please come forward? Elections Commissioner Shao.
I move that the author be allowed to summarize.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize if there are no objections. You may summarize.
Okay, thank goodness. I was really worried I had to read all these names and butcher like half of them, so thank you. Okay, yep. So in accordance with our governing documents, the Senate Operations Committee intercepts the unofficial elections results from the Elections Commissioner after elections have ceased and closed, and then we analyze these results and we are to officially approve them and submit them before Student Senate so that they may be passed. I did want to point out that on, give me a second, let me flip to the page. A lot of pages here. Towards the end, on section 3, it talks about copy of this resolution shall be sent to chairs of Union Governing Board and Student Publications Board. That will be removed from the legislation because those are not SGA positions, and there's a lot of discussion and concern whether or not that was a relevant action to follow. It was something that had been done in previous years, but there's no written policy stating that that is something we have to do. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that those organizations will not be receiving this resolution. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, are there any questions for the author? Intern Boots.
Is it necessary to keep the names exactly how they were spelled on the election?
That's what I was told to do, and that's what I did. If it's really bothersome and the name that's in all caps it needs to be changed, then I will change it, but just doing what I'm told.
I was just wondering.
Nope, it's a good question.
All right, further questions? Senator Wasikowski.
Yeah, so Ollie and Jimson, can they be simultaneously confirmed as president, vice president, and senators for the College of Engineering?
That's an excellent question. I have no idea. I think so because they... There's a lot of hands going up. I don't know what to do. I defer my speaking rights to Kristen.
So my understanding is that, so these are the unofficial results, the actual positions, like who's contacted will be the responsibility of the current speaker, and so they will then follow the list of the, like, who is next in line, if that person is then, like, when they leave their position. So I believe it's the responsibility of Jensen and Ollie to give up their seats because they can't hold an office in 2 branches. That may not be 100% correct.
I think that is correct. Like, this is not swearing them in. This is not swearing them in to take both offices. This is just confirming that this is legit stuff that was on the ballot. The end.
Thank you.
Yeah, the results.
All right, further questions? Chair Spelman.
On lines 111 and 112, there's an extra space in between them.
There sure is. We'll get rid of that. Thank you.
Further questions or corrections? Chair Colburn.
Does anyone approve or like go over the UGB and the other things on the ballot?
I believe UGB and the other boards take care of that themselves, similarly to how the college councils. Okay, someone's raising their hand, shaking their head. You want to field that?
I'm the UGB president, and
Go for it.
just look at the online results and use them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, further questions? Elections Commissioner Shao.
I just have a correction. So on line 9, it says the primary election on February 12th and 14th. It should be 12th and 13th.
Might be. I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, this resolution will be referred to the Senate Operations Committee. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 46? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider resolution 46. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Resolution 46. Will the author please come forward?
You can't refer to us because we're on standing committee. Resolution 18-1946, approval of the fiscal year 2020 student-centered tuition enhancements committee allocations by Shelby Carpenter, Lily Colburn, Alec Hildreth, Derek Hildreth, Marcus Kidd, Jordan Martin, Miranda Moore, Don Riffle, Paloma Roman, Tyler Schmidt, Ethan Schultz, and Katie Sullivan. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee, SCTE, is charged with the responsibility of evaluating SCTE proposals. Whereas the SETE Fund provides funding for programs that enhance student experiences at K-State and seed money for the creation and implementation of new programs and initiatives. Whereas the SETE budget available for fiscal year 2020 totals $700,000. Whereas excess funds totaling $450,411.78 are available in the SETE reserve for additional SET allocations. Whereas the SETE committee considered 18 proposals for fiscal year 2020, whereas the groups were all provided ample opportunity to submit requests for fiscal year 2020, whereas the SETE proposals have been reviewed thoroughly and 4 were considered under priority funding status for fiscal year 2020, and whereas the following organizations have met all the guidelines established by the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Be it resolved that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, supports the following priority expenditure recommendations for fiscal year 2020 student-centered tuition enhancement SETE monies. Priority funding proposals: 1, scholars assisting scholars, allocated $34,000. I'll just do requested and allocated. So they requested $40,000, $40,020, and they were allocated $28,000. Developing Scholars Program requested $51,030, allocated $42,500. Sustaining and Developing the K-State Writing Center requested $44,182, allocated $17,000. Green Action Fund requested $30,000, allocated $13,000. Section 2, KSU-SGA supports the following expenditure recommendations for fiscal year 2019 SETE monies. Repeat proposals: Peer Advocates for Mental Wellness and Success requested $39,112, allocated $39,112. Academic Coaching Program requested $121,653, or $126,828, allocated $121,653. Cats Covered requested $97,915, allocated $97,915. K-State 360 requested $133,526, allocated $133,526. Wildcat Link requested $50,000, allocated $50,000. Textbook Affordability Program requested $15,000, allocated $15,000. Wildcat Dialogues requested $3,500, allocated $3,500. Academic Advising Initiative requested $85,000, allocated $85,000. And Accounting Success Academy requested $14,000, allocated $0. And the new proposals: Peer Research Consultation Pilot requested $10,000, allocated $10,000. Sexual and Relationship Violence Prevention Specialist requested $55,440, allocated $55,440. Browsing and Integration into the Library Discovery Layer requested $5,249, allocated $0. Enhancing the Union Study Experience requested $11,800, allocated $0. Education Abroad Diversity Outreach Initiatives requested $16,130, allocated $0. Overall, there were $828,732 requested, and we allocated $711,646. Section 3, any unspent funds shall be automatically revert back to the SETE reserve account at the end of fiscal year 2020. And Section 4, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of the resolution shall be sent to the University President, Richard Myers, Provost and Executive Vice President, Charles Tabor, Vice President for Administration and Finance, Sidney Brauntrager, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students, Pat Bosco, and Student Governing Association Advisor, Heather Reed.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, just kidding. Chair Spellman?
Could you explain the difference between the priority funding proposals and how, like, they're funded differently compared to repeat?
Yeah. As is mentioned in one of the whereas clauses and in the statutes, SETE money is designed to be seed money for like new programs on campus. And so it's built into the statutes that after 4 years of receiving funding from SETE, there's a mandatory at least 10% cut that the SETE committee has to make each year, so that organizations and groups on campus are encouraged to find funding outside of SETE to promote a long-term solution to their funding.
Further questions or corrections? Intern Booz?
Last year, approximately how much money reverted back to the reserve account, or this year?
I don't know specifically last year. What I can say is that this year there's going to be probably at least 30 to 40,000 due to some issues that happened with a couple of the organizations.
Permission for a follow-up.
Please.
And so, like, since it's such, it seems to be, at least to me, such a large amount, it's almost like it's over half of the amount that you have in the regular budget. Is there any plan for doing anything with those funds or keeping them in reserve, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so because SCCE comes from tuition dollars, it's very likely, so this bill says that the budget available is $700,000. That's kind of a estimated budget. So depending on what enrollment does and things like that, we may end up having less of a budget than that. And so ideally, I think we should keep a pretty large amount just because of the way that the current situation is at K-State. And one of the biggest problems with deciding to, like this year, if we had decided to allocate $800,000, which we very well could have, judging by the proposals, because these proposals are usually funded about 4 years on SCTE, that means that that's going to be 4 years in a row where we're probably going over budget, and that reserve can quickly get eaten up.
Thank you.
Further questions for the author? All right, seeing none, this resolution will be referred to the Senate Executive Committee. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 47? Chair Spellman.
I move to consider Resolution 47.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Resolution 47. Will the author please come forward?
Sweet. Resolution 18-1947, resolution for electronic cigarette exemption from smoking ban. Before I start this, actually, the 30th line is going to be taken out. That's an edit that I forgot to make before we sent this out, so keep that in mind as I read through. By Alec Hildreth, Derek Hildreth, Michael Leverett, Sean Marshall, and Ben Snyder. Whereas in 2016, the Special Committee on Tobacco and Smoking Engagement surveyed students, tabled in the K-State Student Union, and led an open forum to gather input regarding what students think the new smoking on campus policy should be. Whereas the survey was sent out to a stratified sample of 2,423 students and received 744 responses, which is 30%. Whereas 16% of surveyed students identified as smokers and or tobacco product users. Whereas 12% of surveyed students said that a complete smoking and tobacco ban would make them less likely to attend Kansas State University. Whereas Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, passed Resolution 151661, resolution in support of a complete smoking and tobacco ban on campus on February 18, 2016. Whereas this resolution led to the enactment of Cats for Clean Air, an initiative aimed at eliminating secondhand smoke on KSU's campuses. Whereas this initiative prohibits, quote, the smoking of cigarettes, cigars, pipes, or burning tobacco in any other form or device, as well as the use of electronic cigarettes, vaporizers, hookah, or other water pipe devices and all other related devices in university-owned vehicles and on university property, except inside personal vehicles. Like I said, that next whereas clause is taken out. Whereas violations of this ban are to be self-reported. Whereas K-State's Cats for Clean Air website states that students who have been reported for smoking on campus are subject to student code of conduct violations. Whereas an article published in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, stated that there is no significant risk of harm to human health from e-cigarette emissions. Whereas research has also proven that electronic cigarette use is safer than smoking traditional cigarettes. And whereas enforcing this ban isolates and stigmatizes electronic cigarette smokers, criminalizing an action that has no health risks to observers. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, recognizes that our Cats for Clean Air initiative is noble in its pursuit to eliminate dangerous secondhand smoke on campus. Section 2, KSU-SGA supports a change to the official campus smoking policy to allow the use of electronic cigarettes on Kansas State University Manhattan campus, as e-cigarettes do not emit smoke that is harmful to observers. And Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Kansas State University President Richard B. Myers.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Spellman.
So on line 39, semicolon and quotation mark should be switched. And then on line 54, it should be just, for Kansas State University, it should just be in parentheses KSU.
Could you repeat that first one?
So 39, I think the quotation mark is supposed to go inside the full semicolon.
I might defer that one to Chair Carpenter.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say that one more time?
Do you have resolution 47 sitting in front of you? Line 39, the semicolon and parentheses. Wait, parentheses and, wait, no, semicolon and quotation.
39. No, the semicolon should be inside the parentheses.
Okay, then we need to change it on resolution 41 because I had it different.
Further questions or corrections on this resolution? Intern Hines.
So I understand that you're removing line 30, but if the ban's not currently enforced by university policy, why would we?
This sounds like a hypothetical question.
If it's not enforced,
That's
why
a
not just remove the entire
Hypothetical
policy?
question. Could you rephrase that question? Do you want to answer it? Senator Wilhelm.
So from this survey, did you receive a percentage of students that said a complete smoking tobacco ban would make them more likely to attend Kansas State University?
This
Did you receive
survey,
that percentage?
this survey was the survey that they did in 2018 or 2016, and it was yes or no. The original resolution did read as like, the resolution read as like, whatever it would be, 82% of people said that they would not be less likely. So I just flipped it because
Okay, I gotcha.
it's the
I see what you're
narrative that they painted versus the narrative that I'm kind of painting.
Follow up.
Would you be able to resend out that data?
If I can find, yeah, I know I have the resolution
Yeah.
that they passed. Yeah, I can send that back out. It's in the files on OrgSync, I think.
Yeah, if you go through history, you can find it pretty far back in there. Further questions or corrections? Intern Booz.
I was wondering if you had a link to that National Library Medicine National Institute of Health. So if you were going to send other things out, that would be nice to send out as well.
I can do that as well.
All right. Further questions or corrections for the author? All right. Seeing none, Resolution 47 will be referred to the Senate Executive Committee. All right. Is there a motion to consider Bill 79? Chair Kulkarni.
I move that we consider Bill 79. Second.
It's been moved and second that we consider Bill 79. Will the author please come forward?
Okay, and then before I begin, Joshua Arnoldy needs to be added as an author and will be added as an author. Okay. Bill 181979, Amendments to the Responsibilities of the Speaker Pro Tempore by Lily Colburn and Joshua Arnoldy. Whereas the new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Standing Committee, DEI Committee, is legislated to execute and analyze a demographic survey of newly elected and appointed members of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, whereas the DEI Committee will spend all of its time focusing on issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion with plans that will likely be heavily influenced by the results of the demographic survey, whereas the responsibility of the Speaker Pro Tempore are far-ranging and not solely focused on DEI issues or necessarily affected by the results, and whereas the Speaker Pro Tempore will serve as an ex officio member on the DEI committee, so their role in Student Senate membership will still be able to inform and advise the committee on the survey. Be it enacted that Section 1, Article 5, Section 507 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA Constitution is hereby amended to read as follows. I'm going to read the whole thing. Okay. 507, Duties and Powers of the Speaker Pro Tempore of the Student Senate. Part I will be struck, and Part J will be changed to I, organize activities to help in the orientation of newly elected student senators, and J, serve on Faculty Affairs Committee of Faculty Senate. Section 2, this bill shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Body President.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Spellman.
Doesn't this need to be passed the same day that the DEI legislation goes through?
Yeah, so it's just being introduced right now, and it will be up for final action next week. So, again, like it does say, so the first whereas clause, the new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Standing Committee, as if it was created. So when like DEI's number is 71, so it'll come, or 70, so it'll come before. So again, as I said earlier, if you all decide not to create the DEI committee, then this bill will become irrelevant.
All right, further questions or corrections? Seeing none, Bill 79 will be referred to the Special Committee on Membership. Is there a motion to consider Bill 80? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider Bill 80.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Bill 80. Will the author please come forward? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we allow the author to summarize.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Bill 18-1980 continuance of the K-State Student Union food contract termination privilege fee by the Privilege Fee Committee. Whereas the K-State Student Union provides various dining options to students, whereas during the union renovation, the K-State Student Union terminated a food service contract with Sodexo, a food service provider. Whereas Kansas State University made a cash advance to buy out the contract with Sodexo, whereas Kansas State University and SGA made the K-State Student Union contract termination privilege fee agreement to repay the cash advance to the university for 0% interest. And whereas the K-State Student Union food contract termination privilege fee agreement requires the payment of $80,000 per year to the university until the cash advance is paid in full. I'm not going to read on to the agreement because I explained it mostly up there, but this $80,000 will be paid out each year until the year 2022. Then on 2023, we'll pay the remaining $20,000 balance left until that is paid in full. And then this agreement will obviously be wiped from privilege fee as well.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Spellman.
The line numbers are the wrong.
We'll get that changed. Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, Bill 80 will be referred back to the Privilege Fee Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 81? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider Bill 81.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Bill 81. Intern Booz.
Yeah, I move that the author of Bill 81 and 82 be allowed to summarize.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that the authors of Bills 81 and 82 be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Continuance of the K-State Student Union Repair and Replace Reserve Privilege Fee by the Privilege Fee Committee. Whereas the K-State Student Union provides students with many opportunities that drive student success and achievement at Kansas State University, whereas the K-State Student Union has the potential for unexpected emergencies and unforeseen damage to infrastructure, and whereas the Privilege Fee Committee deems these funds a necessary investment to maintain the quality, environment, and safety of the K-State Student Union in case of an emergency or as deemed necessary by the Executive Director. So just to reiterate, this is $25,000 per year that goes into a fund that its current level is at $230,000, where the student union, as deemed necessary by the Executive Director, can pull from these if there's any big failures or emergencies. For instance, if the ceiling glass in the courtyard were to shatter after a big storm or something, it's kind of things that are unforeseen that are covered by this. And I will point out one more amendment that we did make to this agreement that was not previously here the last 3 years, is down on lines 46 through 48. The Executive Director requested, as the bill stands, once this fund reaches $250,000, after it maxes out at that $25,000 that goes over to the repair and replace budget, which is a separate one. And he requested that money can also go into the operations budget. And so we made the amendment where if that does hit that $250,000 mark, which it very much could because it's currently sitting at $230,000, that excess can spill over into the operations budget as well. But in order for it to be able to spill over in operations, it must be approved by Privilege Fee Committee. And the reasoning behind that was because the the funds currently here in the R&R reserve have to be approved in order to be spent. They have to be approved by the Privilege Fee Committee. So we wanted that same spirit in the legislation. If it's going to spill over, we need to have that oversight on it to know why it's going in operations and not in a reserve.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Intern Booth.
According to my copy of the Constitution, on 164, it mentions the Constitution, Article 5, Section 509, letter C. 509 doesn't have a letter C, and it isn't really about buildings. And I'm trying to find the other reference.
Are you referring to line 64?
Yes.
Sweet. We will find where that's at in the Constitution and get that adjusted. Thank you.
Further questions or corrections? Intern Glasscock.
Correction, it looks like the numbers on the side, I think the font should be changed on those.
Okay, we'll get that fixed. Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, Bill 81 will be referred back to the Privilege Fee Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 82? Intern Glasscock.
Move to consider Bill 82.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 82. Will the author please come forward?
May I summarize? Oh,
I can't. It's already been allowed for you to
Thank you.
summarize.
I forgot. Bill 181982, continuance of the K-State Student Union Repair and Replacement Privilege Fee by the Privilege Fee Committee. Whereas the K-State Student Union provides students with many opportunities that drive student success and achievement at Kansas State University, whereas the union accrues between 140 to 200,000 pedestrians per month, including repeat visitors. Whereas the K-State Student Union underwent a renovation in recent years and must repair and replace various building infrastructure, furniture, meeting spaces, and other items deemed necessary by the executive director. Whereas the Privilege Fee Committee reviewed the long-term repair and replacement plan, and whereas the Privilege Fee Committee deems these funds a necessary investment to maintain the quality, environment, and safety of the K-State Student Union. And so if you look down in the contract, this is $419,000 per year that will go into this fund, and as it states in the whereas clauses, they have a long-term plan on different things that need to be repaired around the building, and that goes from very large expenses like every HVAC unit. It costs about like $90,000 to replace, and they have like 16 of those that need to be replaced, in different items like that, big and small, from furniture to some of those larger items. So we reviewed all of those and took a big like building tour, and that is what that procedure looked like.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Intern Booth.
I guess I want to mention the same problem also occurs in this bill and in your first bill as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Intern Booth, which lines are those in this bill?
That's line 77 of this bill, and I'd have to scroll back up. And Bill 80 would be line 55.
Could you say that one more time?
Line 77 of Bill 82, I believe, and then Bill 80 would be line 55.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions or corrections? Intern Glasscock.
Correction, those numbers on the side should be Times New Roman.
We will fix that.
Thank you.
All right, further questions? Seeing none, Bill 82 will be referred back to the Privilege Fee Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 83? Intern Glasscock.
I'm going to consider Bill 83.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 83. Will the author please come forward?
Pretty short. Bill 181983, fiscal year 2018, closing of engineering ambassadors account by Ryan Kelly and Jordan Martin. Whereas in accordance with the Kansas State University Student Governing Association funding statutes, the SGA treasurer is required to close campus-wide organization accounts on an annual basis that retain unused funds, whereas the account listed below has remaining funds that are subject to the provision above, and whereas this account's remaining balance is brought to the attention of the treasurer after the passage of Bill 181947, be it enacted that Section 1, the amount listed below shall revert back from the respective individual campus-wide organization account, that should probably say, back to the Reserve for Contingencies account, NISA Con Reserve. NISA 0382CC Engineering Ambassadors, $50.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author?
I'd just like to note, this is exactly the same as like the bill 181947. Amy Lee, our accountant, does great work, and he ran a report, and this one just happened to not be on there, and she found it like 2 weeks later. So.
All right, seeing none, Bill 83 will be referred to the Senate Executive Committee. All right, is there a motion to consider Bill 84? Senator King.
Move Bill 84.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 84. Will the author please come forward?
Okay, so Bill 1984, on-campus allocation to Turning Point USA. Whereas the On-Campus Allocations Committee received and reviewed the on-campus request of Turning Point USA, whereas Turning Point USA will be hosting Fighting for the Fist on April 4th, 2019 in the Kansas State Student Union, whereas Fighting for the Fist will be an open dialogue event that will bring distinguished speakers Austin Fletcher, DC Drano, and Elijah Schaefer to discuss the importance of freedom of speech and the First Amendment in today's society in an open and civil manner. Whereas Austin Fletcher, DC Drano, Elijah Schaefer have existing experience in speaking at campus platforms along with large social media followings, whereas Turning Point USA is registered with the Center for Student Involvement as an independent student organization, and whereas the funds requested by this group and the funding recommendations are as follows. They requested $3,000, recommended $3,000. Be enacted that upon the passage of this legislation, the student sit-in and signature of student body present, and upon signing of the award agreement by the members required by the university, Turning Point USA shall be awarded and distributed $3,000 from, yeah.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Intern Boos.
I think you already noticed this, but yeah, the organization name in line 34 and 35.
Gotcha. Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, Bill 84 will be referred back to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 85? Inter-Coordinator Bothwell.
I move Bill 85. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 85. Will the author please come forward? Chair Spellman.
I move to allow the author to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Bill 1819-85, increase of the K-State Student Union Operations Privilege Fee by the Privilege Fee Committee. The K-State Student Union provides students with many opportunities that drive student success and achievement at Kansas State University, whereas the union is home to many organizations including SGA, Multicultural Student Office, Center for Student Involvement, and Union Program Council, whereas the union offers numerous dining and entertainment options to students including Wabash Cannibal, an event space that is free to reserve for all registered student organizations, whereas the union operations privilege fee contributes 43% of the total revenue utilized to maintain operations of the union, whereas the student union allocates 61% of the total revenue to cover payroll, whereas the union contributes about $450,000 for student payroll annually, whereas the union currently pays as low as $7.25 an hour to student employees and faces difficulty in competing with employers on campus and within the community that offer higher wages, whereas the continual rise in cost of living creates financial difficulty for students and employees working at a rate of $7.25 an hour, whereas the union has seen an increase in operational needs as a result of accommodating student needs in the absence of Hale Library, whereas the union plans to continue offering additional resources including study spaces and student technology services, and whereas the Privilege Fee Committee deems an increase of 3% or $50,961 to the K-State Student Union Operations Privilege Fee necessary to increase student employee wages and aid in rising operational needs. So those are the whereas clauses, and as you can see in the bill, this is $1.7 million that is allocated to the operations of the union, which is one of the top three accounts that the privilege fee has. So,
all right, with that, are there any questions or corrections? Intern Boos?
Sorry about repeating this every time, but And line 75 also has the same issue.
Thank you.
Further questions or corrections? I do have one question for you. Line 6, it's K-State Student Union, KSSU. Are you wanting to use that acronym throughout on all 4 of the bills? Because it's been a little, I don't know what you want to do.
Yes, yeah, that would.
Yeah.
I'd say use the acronym.
Okay, we'll get that changed. Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, Bill 85 will be referred back to the Privilege Fee Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 86? Chair Spellman.
I move to consider Bill 86.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 86. Will the author please come forward? Chair Carpenter. It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Okay, so this is the first of the elections code changes that we want to make, and so this one, there is nothing particularly controversial in it at all. It's just grammar changes and stuff like that, so I'm going to touch on all of them really briefly, but it's really basic. So on line 40, it says failing to file required reports except as provided by 540109F and 540102A. We're adding, so it's just correcting it to the right section because the section that's currently listed doesn't exist. Same thing with line 53, that section didn't exist, so we moved it to a section that does exist. The next thing changes, we added some verbiage to the elections board definition because it wasn't consistent with all the other definitions. We also changed some things just to be more consistent with what actually happens. The place that said the candidates have to register through the Center of Student Involvement, that doesn't happen, so we just said as required by the Elections Commissioner because that's how it works. Added the members of the Elections Committee as people that aren't qualified for running for office so that they are unbiased. Next sections, we added again that people don't have to register with the professional staff of CSI because that's not a thing. And then the last page of it, for primary election procedures, so it says that you should notify the student body president and the student body vice president after the primary election, but at the time of the primary, the student body president, vice president hasn't filed. So we removed that because we will not be notifying them. Added change where the name was filer to complainant because that's the language you use in hearings. Just specified elections commissioner and then changed the place where it said elections commissioner to elections board because that's the responsibility of the multiple people. So those are all those fun little changes. If you guys see any other grammar stuff anywhere in the statutes ever, LMK.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, Bill 86 will be referred back to the Senate Operations Committee. We'll now move into second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Chair Penny.
So you guys should have just gotten an email from Ollie and I. The applications for both Chief of Staff and Cabinet are now open. Chief of Staff are open until the 17th, and so that's the Sunday here at the end of spring break, and those have been open since Monday. So, and we had an info session for that today as well. So, and then those are open, and Cabinet is now open until April 10th, so there's more than enough time for those as well. If you guys have any questions over any of those positions that are on the email or about the application, please let us know anytime, and we'll be holding 2 more informational sessions that we will publicize after spring break. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Any questions for Chair Penny? All right, seeing none, are there any more speakers for second open period? All right, seeing none, we will now move into second roll call.
Adams.
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
Rinaldi. Belk. Bothwell.
Here.
Bergston. Bowen. Boykin.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Burke. Carpenter.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
D. Moranville.
Here.
Dunfield. Esses.
Here.
Gammon. Gillian King. Grover.
Here.
Hammond.
Here.
Heatherman.
Here.
Alec Hildreth.
Here.
Derek Hildreth.
Here.
Huffman. Javin. Karmali. Kidd. King. Kulkarni. Leverett.
Yeah.
Mari. Mark.
Morgan. Here.
Neatery.
Here.
Orth. Orzakowski.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Penny.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Roman.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Spencer. Sullivan. Tile. Thompson.
Here.
Chumlin.
Here.
Wessel.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
And Whitmer.
Here.
All right, we have 43 senators present, 4 excused, and 3 absent.
All right, with that, I will now look for a motion to adjourn. Intern Hines?
I move to adjourn and meet until 2 Thursdays from now. Same time, same location, same time, same place.
Second? All right, it's been moved and second that we adjourn. If there are no objections, we are adjourned. Have a great spring break, everyone.
I